I stood in my parents' backyard on that 4th of July weekend, holding a cold beer and watching my younger brother Dylan show off his brand new BMW to our relatives. The summer air was thick and warm, and the smell of grilled burgers drifted across the lawn. Dylan's voice carried over the chatter as he bragged about his latest promotion, and I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, the same feeling I had carried since childhood. I never thought that day would be the one where everything came crashing down, where secrets buried for decades would explode in front of everyone, and where my brother's perfect world would shatter like glass. Before we dive into how favoritism can destroy a family from the inside out, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe, because this story takes a turn nobody saw coming, especially not my brother. Growing up, I always knew something was different about how my parents treated Dylan and me. I was born first, and Dylan came along 5 years later. By the time he arrived, my dad Robert had grown his small construction company into something more stable, and my mom Linda had moved up in her accounting firm. They always said that was why things were different. They had more money when Dylan was born. They could afford better things. But it was more than that. Way more. When I was a kid, I wore hand-me-down clothes from my older cousin. My toys came from garage sales or were bought on clearance after Christmas. I went to the local public school where the paint peeled off the walls and the gym smelled like old socks. I did not complain because I thought that was just how things were. My parents worked hard and I figured we were doing okay. Then Dylan got older and I started to see the difference. He had new clothes from department stores. He had the latest video games on release day. His room filled up with expensive toys while I still played with my beat-up action figures. When he started elementary school, my parents enrolled him in a private academy across town, the kind with small class sizes, music programs, and brand new computers in every classroom. I remember asking my mom why Dylan got to go to a different school. She smiled and said, "We're more stable now, Jake. We can give Dylan opportunities we couldn't give you." I was 12 years old, and even then I knew that answer did not sit right. But I nodded and went back to my homework. The gap between us widened as we got older. In 8th grade, Dylan struggled with math and science. My parents hired private tutors who came to the house twice a week, $200 a week, I later found out. When I was in 10th grade and wanted help with my AP French class, I asked if I could get a tutor too. My dad looked at me over his newspaper and said, "You can study on your own, Jake. You've always been independent." Independent. That word became a shield they used every time I asked for something. You are independent. You are self-sufficient. You can figure it out. Dylan played soccer and my dad went to every single game. He bought Dylan expensive cleats paid for elite training camps and drove him to tournaments 3 hours away. I ran track and I was good at it too. I made it to the state championships my junior year. My parents said they would try to come, but the day of the meet, they took Dylan to look at colleges instead. He was only in 8th grade. I came in 3rd place that day. I stood on that podium, got my medal, and looked into the crowd hoping to see my parents. They were not there. My friend Marcus's mom took pictures for me and told me she was proud. I went home that night and put the medal in my drawer. Nobody asked about it. My 16th birthday was on a Tuesday. My mom made my favorite dinner meatloaf and mashed potatoes and gave me a $50 watch from Target. It was nice. I thanked her and meant it. 2 months later, Dylan turned 16. My parents threw him a party at an Italian restaurant downtown. 50 people showed up. There were balloons, a DJ, and a cake that cost more than my entire birthday dinner. After everyone sang and Dylan blew out the candles, my dad handed him a set of keys. I watched from the corner of the restaurant as my little brother ran outside and started screaming. In the parking lot sat a brand new Audi A4 silver with black leather interior. $30,000, I found out later. My dad hugged Dylan and said, "You have been doing so well in school, son. You deserve this." Dylan's GPA was a 3.2. Mine was a 3.8. Nobody mentioned that. I stopped expecting things after that. I learned to become what they said I was: independent, self-sufficient. I got a job at a coffee shop when I turned 17 and saved every penny. When it came time to apply for colleges, I did it alone. I filled out scholarship applications at the library after school. I wrote my essays during lunch breaks. I got accepted to a decent public university with a partial scholarship for computer science. My parents seemed relieved that I had figured it out. They did not offer to help with the rest of the tuition, so I took out student loans, $35,000 worth. I worked 3 jobs during college. I served drinks at a bar on Friday nights, tutored kids in math on weekends, and did IT support for the university during the week. I slept maybe 5 hours a night. My hands always smelled like coffee or beer, and I lived off ramen and whatever free food I could find on campus. Dylan got into a private university with a tuition of $60,000 a year. My parents paid every cent. They bought him a meal plan, furnished his dorm room, and gave him a credit card for expenses. He did not work a single day during his 4 years there. He joined a fraternity, went to parties, and posted pictures on social media of his trips to Miami and Las Vegas. When I graduated with my computer science degree, I had a job offer from a tiny startup that 5 people worked at. The salary was $35,000 a year, barely enough to cover rent and food in the city, but they offered me a small amount of equity, 0.08%. It seemed like nothing at the time, but I took it because I believed in what we were building. Dylan graduated with a business degree and a 3.1 GPA. The next week, my dad created a position for him at the construction company, junior manager, $70,000 a year starting salary. Dylan had never swung a hammer or read a blueprint in his life. I stopped going home for holidays, unless I absolutely had to. It hurt too much to watch them celebrate Dylan while barely acknowledging I existed. When I did show up, the conversations were always the same. My mom would ask Dylan about work and listen to his stories for an hour. Then she would turn to me and say, "Still at that little computer company." Her voice carried that tone, the one that made it clear she thought I was wasting my time. The startup I joined was called LogiTrack. We built software for small businesses to manage their logistics and inventory. It was not glamorous. We worked out of a cramped office above a dry cleaner, and the air conditioning broke every summer. But I loved it. I was learning everything: how to code better, faster, cleaner, how to design products that people actually wanted to use, how to talk to customers and understand their problems. I lived in a studio apartment that was basically a closet with a window. My furniture came from the curb on trash day. I ate instant noodles and peanut butter sandwiches because that was what I could afford after paying my student loans. Every month I sent in my payment, $600. It hurt every single time, but I never missed one. Dylan, meanwhile, was living large. He bought a condo with my parents' help on the down payment. He leased a new car every 2 years. His Instagram was full of pictures from expensive restaurants and weekend trips to ski resorts. He tagged our parents in posts thanking them for everything they did for him. At Thanksgiving, I made the mistake of going home. My mom spent the entire dinner asking Dylan about his promotion to regional manager. He was 24 years old and had been working for 2 years. The promotion was a gift from our dad. Everyone knew it, but they acted like Dylan had earned it through hard work and talent. "How about you, Jake?" my mom asked as she passed the gravy. "Still at that startup?" "Yeah," I said. "We are actually doing really well. We just landed a big client." "That is nice," she said, but her eyes were already back on Dylan. Dylan smirked at me across the table. "So you are still fixing computers all day?" "Something like that," I said. "Well, someone has got to do it," he said, and everyone laughed. I left right after dessert and drove back to my tiny apartment. I sat on my used couch and stared at the wall. I was not angry anymore. Anger required energy, and I had spent all of mine years ago. I just felt empty. But that night, something shifted in me. I made a decision. I was going to be successful, not to prove anything to them, but to prove something to myself. I was going to build a life so solid that nobody could ever make me feel small again. I threw myself into work. I stayed late every night. I volunteered for every project, every challenge, every impossible deadline. I learned new programming languages on weekends. I read books about business strategy and product development. I became the person everyone came to when they had a problem they could not solve. By my third year at LogiTrack, I was the lead developer. Our app had grown from a scrappy tool used by 20 businesses to a platform that hundreds of companies relied on. We were getting attention from bigger players in the industry. Then one day, our CEO called an all-hands meeting. A major logistics company wanted to acquire us. The negotiations took 6 months. There were lawyers, due diligence, endless meetings. I barely slept. But finally the deal closed. $25 million. I owned 8% of the company. After taxes, I walked away with $1.3 million. I was 27 years old and I was a millionaire. The first thing I did was pay off my student loans, all of them. I logged into the account and watched the balance go to zero. Then I sat there and cried. Not sad tears, relief tears. I put 70% of what was left into index funds and dividend stocks. I kept 30% liquid for opportunities. The acquiring company wanted to keep me on as senior engineering manager with a salary of $200,000 a year. I said yes. I also started doing freelance consulting for other startups. I took equity stakes instead of cash when I believed in the founders. 2 of those companies ended up doing very well. My net worth grew. But here is the thing. I did not tell anyone. I did not buy a fancy car or move to a penthouse. I kept living in my same apartment. I still drove my 2015 Honda Civic. I wore jeans and t-shirts from Target. I did not want the attention. I did not want people treating me differently. I just wanted to live my life in peace. Dylan, on the other hand, was drowning in debt he did not talk about. He had bought a house he could not afford with a mortgage that ate half his salary. He leased a luxury car and maxed out credit cards on clothes and gadgets. He constantly borrowed money from our parents, which they gave him without question. He never paid them back. Over the next 3 years, my investments grew. The startups I had advised went through successful funding rounds, and my equity became worth real money. By the time I turned 30, my net worth had crossed $3 million. I still lived like I made $40,000 a year. I still bought groceries on sale. I still cut my own hair. People at work had no idea. My parents definitely had no idea. I saw them maybe twice a year, and they still asked me when I was going to get a real job like Dylan. The 4th of July weekend arrived hot and sticky. My mom had been texting me for weeks about the family barbecue. I almost did not go, but something made me say yes. Maybe I was feeling nostalgic. Maybe I was just tired of avoiding them. I showed up around 2 in the afternoon. The backyard was full of relatives I barely recognized. My dad stood at the grill flipping burgers, and my mom was setting out potato salad and coleslaw on a long folding table. Dylan pulled up right after me in his brand new BMW, another lease he probably could not afford. He got out of the car and immediately started showing it off to our Uncle Tom. "Just picked it up last week," he said, running his hand along the hood. "Fully loaded. This baby can do 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. My mom rushed over to admire it. "Oh, Dylan, it is beautiful." "Thanks, Mom," he said, hugging her. Then he looked at me. "Hey, Jake, still driving that old Civic?" "Yep," I said. "Still gets me where I need to go." "If you say so, man." He laughed. I grabbed a beer from the cooler and found a quiet spot near the fence. I was not in the mood for this. I just wanted to eat, stay for a polite amount of time, and leave. My Aunt Patricia came over and sat down next to me. She was my dad's younger sister, and she had always been kind to me growing up. Jake, how are you, sweetheart? I am good, Aunt Patricia. How are you? Oh, you know, same old, same old. How is work? It is good, I said. I am doing some consulting now, helping other companies with their tech infrastructure and doing some investing on the side. That sounds wonderful, she said. Your mom mentioned you sold your company shares a while back. That must have been exciting. My stomach dropped. I had mentioned it to my mom once in passing over a year ago. I did not think she had been paying attention. Dylan was standing about 10 feet away and his head snapped toward us. Company? Shares? What shares? I tried to redirect. It was nothing, just a small thing from a few years ago. Dylan walked closer. How much did you make? Dylan, let's not talk about this here. No, I want to know, he said, his voice getting louder. You always act like you are barely scraping by. More people were starting to look over. My dad put down his spatula. My mom stopped talking mid-sentence. Patricia, bless her heart, did not realize she had just lit a fuse. Well, Jake mentioned it was a couple million, didn't you? The entire backyard went silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the grass. My dad stared at me, mouth open. My mom looked like she had seen a ghost. And Dylan's face turned bright red. What? Dylan shouted. A couple million? Are you kidding me right now? I stood up slowly, setting my beer down on the ground. Dylan, please calm down. Calm down. Calm down. He was shaking. You have been sitting on millions of dollars, and you never said anything. You let us all think you were barely getting by. It is my money, Dylan. I earned it. I did not owe anyone an explanation. I am your brother, he yelled. We are supposed to share things. We are family. That word, family, it made something inside me snap. Share, I said quietly. Like how you shared that $30,000 car you got for your 16th birthday. Like how you shared the free college tuition. Like how you shared the job Dad handed you. Everyone was staring now. My mom started to say something, but I kept going. Do you know how it felt growing up watching them give you everything while I got nothing? Private tutors while I taught myself, a brand new car while I took the bus, a job handed to you while I worked 3 jobs just to eat. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. You want to talk about family, Dylan? Where was my family when I needed help? Where were Mom and Dad when I was drowning in student debt? Where were they when I competed at the state championships? My mom stepped forward, tears in her eyes. Jake, we did the best we could. No, I said, you did not. You had the money, you had the time. You just chose to give it all to him. Dylan's face was purple now. Oh, so now you are playing the victim. You are pathetic, Yue. Maybe they gave me more because I actually appreciated it. Or maybe, I said, they gave you more because they felt guilty. That shut him up. I learned a long time ago that I could not count on you people. I continued. So I stopped trying. I built my own life. I made my own success, and I did not tell you because it is none of your business. Dylan stepped toward me, fists clenched. You think money makes you better than us? You are still the same loser you always were. You are just a loser with money now. I grabbed my keys from my pocket and started walking toward the gate. I was done. Yeah, run away like you always do, Dylan shouted after me. You were always too good for this family, weren't you? I was almost to my car when Patricia's voice rang out across the yard. Dylan, that is enough. Everyone turned to look at her. She was standing up, her hands trembling, her face flushed. You want to know why they spoiled you? She said, her voice shaking. Because they felt guilty. My mom gasped. Patricia, do not... No, Linda. He needs to know. Jake deserves to know too. Know what? Dylan said. Patricia looked at my dad, then at my mom, then back at Dylan. You are not Robert's biological son, Dylan. The world seemed to tilt sideways. What? Dylan whispered. Your mother had an affair when Jake was 5 years old. Patricia said. She got pregnant. Robert found out, but he decided to stay. He raised you as his own, but they have been trying to make up for it ever since. Every gift, every opportunity, every advantage they gave you was because they felt guilty. They were trying to prove they loved you despite everything. Dylan looked like he had been hit by a truck. He turned to my dad. Dad. My dad would not meet his eyes. He just stood there staring at the ground, his shoulders slumped. Dylan turned to my mom. Mom, tell me she is lying. My mom was sobbing, her hands covering her face. Tell me, Dylan screamed, but she could not, because it was true. Dylan stumbled backward, his legs seeming to give out. He sat down hard on the grass. All the color had drained from his face. Everything, he whispered, everything was a lie. I stood by my car frozen. I did not know what to feel. Shock, anger, sadness, relief that it finally made sense. Dylan looked up at me, his eyes red. Jake, but I could not do this. Not right now. I got in my car and drove away. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. The favoritism, the neglect, the constant feeling of being invisible. And now I knew why. It was not about me. It had never been about me. They did not love Dylan more. They were just drowning in guilt. My phone buzzed constantly. Messages from my mom, my dad, even Dylan. I did not read them. I needed time. 2 weeks later, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Dylan standing there. He looked terrible. His eyes were puffy and red like he had been crying for days. His hair was a mess. He had lost weight. I opened the door. Jake, he said, his voice hoarse. Can we talk? I let him in. We sat on my couch, the same uncomfortable silence we had shared our entire lives, sitting between us. I am sorry, he finally said, for everything, for how I treated you, for acting like I was better than you, for all of it. I did not say anything. My whole life, he continued, I thought I was special. I thought I deserved all those things because I was good enough. But it was all a lie. None of it was real. They did not give me those things because they loved me. They gave them to me because they felt guilty. His voice cracked. I do not even know who I am, Jake. Everything I thought I knew about myself was built on a lie. I am not Dad's son. I am not even good at my job. Dad has been covering for me for years. I have no real skills, no real accomplishments. I am 30 years old, and I have nothing that is actually mine. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in my life, I did not see my spoiled little brother. I saw someone who was lost. You want to know the truth, I said quietly. I used to hate you. I used to lie awake at night wishing you would just disappear. But now I just feel sad for both of us. I do not know what to do, he whispered. You start over, I said. You figure out who you are without them. You build something that is yours. I do not know if I can. You can, I said. It is going to suck. It is going to be hard, but you can do it. A month later, I met with my parents. We sat in a coffee shop, neutral territory. My dad looked like he had aged 10 years. My mom could not stop apologizing. We were wrong, my dad said. We were wrong about everything. We let our guilt destroy this family. We abandoned you, Jake, and we smothered Dylan. We failed both of you. I forgive you, I said, and I meant it. But things cannot go back to the way they were. I need boundaries. I need space. They nodded. They understood. Over the next few months, things slowly started to change. Dylan quit working for Dad's company. He got a job in sales at a firm across town. It paid half what he had been making, and he had to start at the bottom. He sold his house and moved into a small apartment. He traded in the BMW for a used Toyota. It was humbling for him, but he did it. We started talking more, really talking, about real things. He told me about going to therapy, about confronting the lies he had told himself his whole life. I told him about the loneliness I had felt growing up, about feeling invisible in my own family. It was not perfect. We were not suddenly best friends, but it was honest, and that was something. I kept working, kept investing, kept building my life, but I realized something important. My success was not about proving anything to anyone. It was not about making my parents regret how they treated me. It was about living the life I wanted on my own terms. A year after the barbecue, we had another family gathering, smaller this time. Just me, Dylan, my parents, and Patricia. We sat around the table, and for the first time in my life, the conversation felt real. My parents asked me about my work, and they actually listened. Dylan talked about his new job, about a big sale he had closed on his own. He was proud, and it was genuine. I looked around the table and realized something. Favoritism had not just hurt me. It had destroyed Dylan, too. He had spent his whole life being handed things, never learning to stand on his own. And when the truth came out, he had nothing solid to stand on. Being the invisible child had taught me to be self-reliant. It hurt like hell, but it made me who I am. Strong, independent, capable of building something from nothing. I do not resent my parents anymore. Their guilt was their prison, not mine. And Dylan is finally learning what I learned years ago, that the only success that matters is the kind you build yourself. Sometimes the best gift your family can give you is neglect. It forces you to become your own hero. I built my success on my own terms, with my own hands through my own hard work. Nobody can take that away from me, and honestly, I would not change a thing. Looking back now, I realize that if my parents had loved me the way I needed, I might not have had the drive to push myself so hard. The pain taught me lessons that money could never buy. It taught me resilience, self-sufficiency, and the value of earning what you have. Dylan is still finding his way. He is learning those lessons now later in life, but he is learning them, and I am proud of him for that. As for me, I am free. Free from needing their approval, free from the anger and resentment, free to live my life exactly how I want. So if you have ever felt invisible in your own family, if you have ever watched someone else get everything while you got nothing, I want you to know something. Use it. Let it fuel you. Let it teach you to stand on your own 2 feet. Because when you build something yourself, when you create success from scratch, nobody can ever take it from you. That is the real gift. Not the money, not the success, but the knowledge that you did it yourself. And that is worth more than anything my parents could have ever given me. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced favoritism in your family? How did you deal with it? Drop your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, smash that like button and hit subscribe so you do not miss more real-life stories like this one. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who has felt invisible and needs to know they are not alone. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you find your own strength. Stay strong, stay true to yourself, and remember that your worth is not determined by how others treat you. It is determined by how you treat yourself.